Welcome to Your Future in Sales and Marketing, a podcast that helps you make great career decisions to get the most out of your career journey. We'll introduce you to the AXR network of established senior leaders and a handpicked group of future aspiring leaders who have it all in front of them. You'll learn what it's like in the top job and how to get there. Your hosts from AXR's specialist sales and marketing recruitment team will also land bonus episodes for you on how to work with recruiters, write a resume, and smash an interview, as well as our very popular market updates. It's the podcast that has it all. You can't get this career advice anywhere else. So for the latest in our how-to series of podcasts, we've got a sales and marketing and finance crossover. So I'm joined by Kunal and Nick from our finance and accounting practice, and we're talking about the topic of getting interview fit. So interviewing is a skill which can be practiced and definitely should be. You can be the best candidate for a role, but if you don't interview well, you're not going to get the job in the first place. So we interview a lot of people. We help a lot of candidates with going for interviews. So we think we've got an idea of what good looks like. So we're going to step you through our top tips to make sure you nail that next interview. So Kunal, kick us off. What are your thoughts on what people should be doing before they're even heading to the interview?
Yeah, well, obviously, first things first, make sure you get there. So if it's a face-to-face interview, it's good to plan your route. So basic elementary stuff, but you won't believe the number of times I get a call, last minute panic from somebody 10 minutes before their interview going, I don't know where I am. Can you please help me? Or they're just scrambling, right? And I think that doesn't really put you in the right headspace to then perform at your best during an interview. So it's really useful to just do the basics, right, around knowing where you're going, ask about parking or how you plan to get there, work that all out. If it's over Teams or over video conferencing, again, do a bit of a practice run beforehand. Make sure your background is very neutral, or that it's a basic setting that you've done. You don't need to wear a tie for video conferences, but make sure that it's clear that the imaging, everything is set up properly. Your audio works. Last thing you want is to start a VC, and for the first 5 minutes, you're trying to figure out how to actually talk to each other. Get that done, and then you're off and running. From there, Nick, what would you think of doing next?
I would say that your first impression matters. So it's really important to get a clear understanding of your audience and knowing your audience. So we're a good resource in terms of being able to share that information with you. If the stakeholder is going to be someone who is more formal, more traditional, we'll probably advise you to wear a full suit and tie. Nowadays, I would say to you, the majority of people will just wear a suit without a tie. If you're going to a tech business, people are going to be walking around in jeans and a t-shirt. I probably wouldn't even recommend you wearing a suit. I'd say something like chinos and a shirt would be good enough. And it's really important to figure out what the audience of the hiring manager is going to be. What's their style? How do they like to interact? What type of skill set they're looking for? So knowing who your audience is really important.
Yeah. I got a call just before we came down to record this from a candidate asking, stupid question, but what should I be wearing to the interview tomorrow? And I think it's a really important question, but those details matter. So lean on your recruiter if you're using one, get that insight. Okay. So you've arrived at the interview. You've just come up in the elevator. You've met the person you're going to be interviewing with. Now you're into a little bit of small talk when you're kind of on the way to the room, or maybe you've just joined the Teams call and you've got that bit of small talk before you jump into the meat of the interview. Look, there's nothing wrong with a bit of small talk about the weather or whether you found a park or not, but I think it's a wasted opportunity. This is a great opportunity to start building a bit of social capital with the interviewer and to start demonstrating a bit of your interest in the business. So why not do a bit of research and bring into that conversation something that you've seen about the business that you really like. Don't just talk about how nice the office building is. Talk about a product the business just launched maybe last week. You can start to really create some standout and build some rapport before you even get into the interview.
Yeah. Andrew, that's an absolute X factor recommendation, because that can sometimes make the difference between whether you're seen as someone who's progressing through the rounds or not. I think that is an absolute top-notch suggestion. I'd say once you then get into the interview itself, it's really good. The first question you're usually going to be asked is, well, tell me about yourself. And when you're going through your narrative and your career journey, it's really important to be pretty authentic about your history. And, when someone's asking you that question, they're not looking for a robotic response explaining how you went from your first job that you had all the way through to your last job with no color or detail in between. Really, where you can make an impact is by, bringing your personality out while you're talking about it, sharing some insights around your motivations of why you moved from one place to another or why you considered, certain roles, how that tied into your career planning views as well. So you do that in a chronological order, but you're also doing that by being authentic and engaging at the same time, and not just stopping at, well, okay, and this was my last role, full stop, but also talking through, well, so where do you see your career progression going from there? And ideally, if that progression leads to that opportunity that you happen to be interviewing for, then highlight how that ties in together.
Yeah, and I think that brings up the next topic, which is just being really self-aware. And, an often conversation starter for an interview is, what are your strengths? And that's probably the easier version of the opposite question, which is, what is your weakness? Strengths, pretty easy. You can kind of highlight those. You have something to lean on. The weakness question is often asked and poorly delivered, very often poorly delivered. I think people will just say, oh, I'm not organized. And then they never really address how they're trying to fix that. And what it shows is there's just a lack of initiative. Like, you understand that you're not organized, for example, but you're not doing anything to fix it. And for them, you're just leaving people on a cliff. So it's really important to communicate with the interviewer saying, this is my weakness. This is what I've done to address it. And these are the outcomes that have come from my work that I'm putting in to fix this.
And be smart with what you talk about as well. Don't talk about a weakness, which is a fundamental requirement of the job that you're going for. Pick your weaknesses cleverly. And as Nick says, close the loop. Competency. So in a structured interview setting, you'll get these set piece questions around, tell me about a time when you've done X. In an unstructured interview, you'll need to find a way to weave these in, but effectively it's telling stories about things that you've done. The more preparation you can do here, the better. So the best approach, generally speaking, is to have 5 or 6 stories about your top achievements in your career to date, and then you're ready to sort of tailor them to the key requirements of the role that you're going for. In terms of the structure you use, there's different ways of approaching it. STAR is a really popular one. We talk about CAR at AXR, so context, action, result. Keep things really, really simple. And in terms of how you actually approach that, the best answers I've seen are the ones that really deliver the context well. So can you link ultimately your understanding of business strategy through to what you're trying to achieve at a functional level? Make sure you spend time there, and then come on to talk about really clear actions that you've delivered and you've led, and finally what the result has been.
Very true. I mean, I think, overall, when it comes to interviews, don't forget to smile, try to relax, be yourself, and, see it from the perspective that it's not just you being interviewed, but that it's a meeting. It's going both ways, and it's something which, you're also trying to gather information on whether that company and the people that you're potentially going to be working with is right for you, and right for you from a career perspective, from a personal life perspective, and approach that meeting from that perspective. I think that'll help actually demonstrate your self-worth, your confidence, probably lead to you asking the right questions, and just giving a more comprehensive, rounded interaction.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would say to common feedback that I've gotten over the last 13 years is, Ken, it was great, didn't ask any questions. They're not showing any sort of initiative. There's no curiosity, and they're just accepting what we're telling them as gospel, when in fact it should be a fact-finding mission for both parties, and it has to be a mutually agreed, fit. So having some really good preset questions that you have prior to the meeting, and then as you go along, if they say something really interesting, make note of that, or jump in there to ask a good question. That's a really key differentiating point.
Awesome. There you go. There's our top tips for interview success. So if you need any help with this specifically, reach out to us 3 or one of the team at AXR. A lot of what we do is helping people prepare to interview well. So we can certainly help you with that as well. So tune in next time for the next episode of our How To series. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. We're passionate about helping you get the most out of your sales and marketing career. Keep listening as we bring you more career insights and advice from Australia's inspiring sales and marketing leaders. See you next time on Your Future in Sales and Marketing.